Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Dana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. Thank you all for coming. So Srila Rupa Goswami says that the essence of the system of Bhakti Yoga is to always what? Always remember Krishna. So there are many paths to enlightenment. There are 4 main paths to enlightenment: Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyan Yoga. And all of these paths involve entering into samadhi, entering into a full absorption in the divine. Dhyan Yoga, or also called Astanga Yoga, does so mechanically with the body. Jnana Yoga by practicing philosophical detachment from thoughts and feelings. Karma Yoga by giving up the results of your action. And Bhakti Yoga through love. Because the easiest way to become absorbed in anything is when we care about it. Am I correct? Right? If you just got a new phone or a new car and you care about it, you may be thinking about it all the time. And that's just an object. What to speak of if there's a person? So when people, are newly in romantic love, They're constantly thinking about their beloved. Am I correct? They're driving, they're eating, they're working, they're solving a complicated mathematical problem, but they're always thinking about their beloved. Or you have a little newborn baby, and you're always thinking about your beloved. So that's, if we do that with the divine, that is full enlightenment. Maybe you guys could all put your phones on vibrate. I just did that with my phone, so maybe you could all do that. That would be nice. Either that, or you have to have the music of your phones match what I'm saying, like background music. It's got to be just like perfectly timed, okay? So you could, that's your other alternative. So why do we want to be absorbed in thoughts of the divine? Well, several reasons. The first one is we'll be a lot happier. When we see things just as matter, we're not going to be very happy. If we see everything as divine and spiritual, that because the ultimate divine is full of bliss, is playful and full of bliss. And another reason, perhaps a little bit more immediately functional, is that we become whatever we're absorbed in. People talk about, manifesting and stuff. They don't fully understand this usually. But Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, this very nice verse, maybe some of you know it, chapter 8, text 6. Any of you know that verse? Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam twaja jante kalevraram tam tam evaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. So my students used to say that whenever anything we ate was especially delicious. Somebody would go, yum, and they'd go, yum yam vapi smaram bhavam. And what that verse means is, whatever we're absorbed in is what we become. So what we have in this life, the body we have, the family we're born into, our educational levels, our health, all of these things is a result of what our absorption was in previous lives, along with our actions. And whatever we're absorbed in this life determines our future. Now, you might think that right after Krishna explains this basic truth of existence, he would tell Arjuna, to whom he spoke that verse, well, so give up everything you're doing in the world and just simply sit and focus on me, focus on the divine. But that's not what he said. In the next verse, 8:7, he says, Mam anusmaram yujicha. Think of me while you are doing your work. And Arjuna was he was a prince, he was royalty, and at that point, he was about to fight some evildoers in a great battle. And so Krishna says, while you're doing this great battle, always think of me. So we should be absorbed in Krishna. We should be absorbed in the divine while we're going about our normal activities. Now, it's also quite interesting that Krishna talks about Jnana Yoga in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He talks about going to a secluded place and staring at the tip of your nose and just eating forest fruits and roots. And Arjuna says, I think that's a little bit difficult system. And at the end, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham magaten antaratmana shradavam bhajate yomam samayukta tamo mataha. He said, the best yogi is one whose mind is absorbed in me. And then you might think that right after that, Krishna would talk about his pastimes in Vrindavan or his pastimes in Mathura, but he doesn't. He starts talking about how you can see him in the world. So we'll be looking at those verses from the Bhagavad Gita Thursday night. I have a similar presentation on Thursday night. This one's from the Bhagavatam, the one on Thursday is from the Bhagavad Gita, especially chapters 7, 9, 10, and 15. Well, we'll be looking at all of those verses, and we have an incredible video for you at the end on Thursday. Yeah. But the point is that Krishna, when he says to Arjuna, the best yogi is one who's always thinking of me, he says, think of me as the light of the sun. Think of me as the taste in water. One time, one gentleman asked Srila Prabhupada, how can I see God? And Srila Prabhupada says, if you want to see God, you need to see him as he tells you to see him. You need to see him as the light of the sun and the taste of water, as the sound and ether. So that's what we're going to be looking at tonight and Thursday night. How to be conscious of Krishna, how to be fully in divine enlightened consciousness at every moment. How to have everything within our lives, everything we see, hear, smell, touch, taste, think about, everything, act as an impetus to remember Krishna and connect us with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says that if we learn to think like this, we will not actually be in the material world. Now, someone can say, well, geographically, I'm here and I have a physical body. And yes, but our consciousness will not be here, and therefore we will not be experiencing the world as material. So there are these nice statements in the Vedas. Sarva kalam idam brahma. Everything is actually spiritual. Or Vasudevam sarvamiti. The Lord is everything. Everything is the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, chapter 20, illusion is only a state of consciousness. It only exists within the mind. So we ready to change our consciousness? All right, so I want to start looking at this verse from Canto 1, where Kunti calls Krishna. She's talking to Krishna face to face. She's speaking to him directly, and she calls him the personality of the form of the universe. So we're going to be looking at Cantos 2 and 8 of the Bhagavatam. There are also some of these in Canto 12, but we're not going to be doing those. We're just going to do 2 and 8, where it's described how Krishna is the personality of the form of the universe. Okay, while we're going through this, I'd like you all, if possible, to take some notes, paper, phone, whatever you want. And I'm going to be asking you at the end, which one of these, you can pick 1, 2, maximum 3, that I'm going to be presenting tonight, you're going to be meditating on in the next couple days. All right? And then Thursday we're going to do this presentation again, but with completely different verses. So what are you going to be meditating on tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday? And then Thursday we're going to give you a whole new set. All right? And then I'm going to go around asking people. So from this presentation, if you can pick 1, 2, or at most 3 things that you're going to be particularly looking out for, okay? Now, if you really get into this, you pick like 1 a day or 1 every half day, and then after a while, you'll start being aware of all of them all the time. Ready? All right. So the Lord's mouth is fire. And that is, his voice is like fire. Actually, Krishna's disc, Sudarshan, is called the master of speech in the 9th canto. So why is it says that fire is his voice? Well, you know, even when we speak, we can understand when anyone speaks that speaking can be like fire. It can be illuminating, it can be warming, it can be purifying, and it can destroy that which is infectious, that which is bad. Whenever any of us are speaking like that, then there is Krishna present in our voice. His skin is the Vedic hymns. This is a really nice projector. Thank you. Yes, you really got the colors and the sharpness. Really appreciate that. So whenever we're chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, or wherever we're chanting any Vedic hymns, we are touching the skin of the Lord. The Vedic hymns are also his cerebral passage. The scriptures are the brain of a religious community, and without it, our community would not have this flow of awareness through its brain to the rest of the body and not be able to function. The Vedas also come from his speaking. Now we know a book like the Bhagavad Gita is directly Krishna speaking, but actually all of the Vedic literatures are coming from the speaking of the Lord. Now we talked about this a little bit in this morning's class. From the Lord's tongue comes everything we eat. So our food goes onto our tongue, but it comes from his tongue. And you notice that he wants us to share our food, right? So all this food comes from the Lord's tongue, and it's all for sharing. And then the rasa, the juice, the essence of everything, the real pleasure of everything is on his tongue. Whatever pleasures anyone enjoys in this world, this juice, this essence, is coming from Krishna's tongue. There's such a nice description one of our great previous teachers, one of our great acharyas named Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he wrote this book called Madhurya Kadambini, and in the last section, the 8th shower of nectar, he calls it, there's a description that when one becomes enlightened, when one becomes fully Krishna conscious, and one is in touch with Krishna, that one sees the beauty of Krishna and all of his senses become like eyes. And one hears the voice of the Lord and all of his senses become like ears. And one smells the fragrance of the Lord and all of one's senses become like a nose. And that Krishna very much relishes that the devotees are getting pleasure from his body, which is the reservoir of all pleasure. And the same great teacher, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, has a similar commentary in the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavatam, where he talks about how the Lord takes pleasure that we are enjoying his form. If you think about what gives us the most pleasure, what gives us the most pleasure is when we can give other people that we love happiness. Isn't that a fact? That's why Christmas is a big holiday for buying gifts for other people. I often say, you know, if the store says, why are you spending $2,000 on other people? Why don't you just spend it on yourself? Would that work? Everybody just bought themselves their own Christmas gifts? What do you think? Would it work? No. We get the most happiness by giving to others and by seeing that others are happy with what we've given them. And even more so than that, we're happy if other people are happy just with us. Like if someone just says, Urmila, I really just like to be around you. I just like you. Right? What better gift can someone give me than that I'm giving pleasure to them? Does this all make sense to you? Yes? So that's why, like Lord Chaitanya, he's saying, when will I experience ecstasy? Just by saying the Lord's name, just by being in the Lord's presence, when will I feel ecstasy? I mean, you might look at that and say, well, that's pretty selfish. But it isn't. Because he knows that the greatest happiness he can give to Krishna is by finding happiness from Krishna. Krishna's like, oh, you're so happy to see me that you're having, and to hear me, and to taste me, and to smell me, and to touch me. Yes? So when we have this realization that the rasa, the juice, the essence of everything, we're actually getting from the tongue of the Lord. And on his lips is greed. So our lips are often greedy. We're greedy to talk too much. We're greedy to eat too much. What's Krishna greedy for? Love. What does he say in his form of Govardhan? Aniyor, Aniyor, give me more, give me more. His smelling powers create all the medicinal herbs. So you've noticed when we're using medicinal herbs, there's this wonderful different fragrances, right? The different smell of peppermint or rosemary, right? All these different fragrances. And this is actually the Lord's smelling. From his nostrils come the wind, so the wind is often changing the weather. And you could say bringing changes in our life. And these changes in our life are really the breathing of the Lord. And his nostrils generate our breathing. Srila Prabhupada says that each of us is like a cell in the universal body of the Lord. And just like when I breathe, that allows all the different cells in my body to breathe. Isn't that a fact? You all remember that from your science classes? Right? My skin cells, my stomach cells, my brain cells, my liver cells. When I take a breath, each of them is getting some of that oxygen. If I'm not breathing, they can't get oxygen. They can't give out their gaseous wastes. And actually, because we're all part of the Lord, my ability to breathe is because he's breathing. So he's breathing. That allows me to inhale and exhale, and then the plants are breathing back. And this is all coming from the breathing of the Lord. The material fragrance is his sense of smell. And his breathing is creating all different kinds of fragrances. So our breath has some smell, but maybe not a nice smell. Some people are often chewing mint or something, right? Actually, Srila Prabhupada said that even if you don't read the scriptures or have a guru, you can find God in the fragrance of a flower. Why? This is his smell. Right? One time, devotee gave Srila Prabhupada a jasmine flower, and Prabhupada kept saying, "This is Krishna, this is Krishna." This is a wonderful one to meditate on. So in English, we have two words, breath and air. When I'm alive, we call it breath. When someone dies, their breath becomes air. And we think of air as just inert gases, just matter. But actually it's not. Because the air everywhere is from the breathing of the Lord. It is the Lord's breath. And whenever we are breathing His prana, we are breathing His energy. All forms come from His eyes. This is described very nicely throughout the Bhagavatam, that Krishna just glances at the material energy, and from that glance, all the different varieties of forms come into being. So I am receiving forms through my eyes, and Krishna is creating forms with his eyes. So I can't do that. I can't look at the table and go, "Oh, cheesecake," and then it appears. But everything that we're seeing, and we have actually, can you hand me the book? We have such a nice, do any of you know Nadia Mani, who's a kirtanier? She's married to Amala Harinam. So she illustrated our book. And I really like the picture that she did for this. Oh, here we go. So this is her picture for the Lord's eyes create all forms, and they glitter and shine. So his eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets, right? If we like someone, then we make eye contact with them, right? So whenever I'm seeing the sun and Venus and the higher planets, I'm actually making eye contact with the Lord. Then outer space are his eye pits. So, my eye sockets are kind of ghoulish. But Krishna's eye sockets, his eye pits, are full of wonder, full of all of outer space. And the eyeball is the sun as his power of seeing. So Srila Prabhupada talks about this a lot, how first Krishna sees and then I see. Like first Krishna breathes and then I breathe. First Krishna tastes and then I can taste. So first Krishna sees and then I can see. Prabhupada would often say, you're so proud of your power of seeing, but without the sun, how can you see? Or even artificial light, which is all derived directly or indirectly from sunlight. So because Krishna is seeing, therefore I can see. Then his eyelids are day and night. So when his eyes are open, that's day, and when they're closed, it's night. So when we're waking up, Krishna is opening his eyes, and when we're going to sleep, he's closing his eyes. This is a really nice one. I really like to meditate on this. So every sunrise and sunset is the moving of Krishna's garments through the sky. So Krishna has this kind of yellowish saffron garments, and he has a dark blue form. And so when you see the sun rising or the sunset, so that is the Lord's garments moving through the sky with a little bit of his form. On his neck are all the sounds. Sometimes we see birds moving their neck to make sounds. Yes? So his ears hear everything, but especially the Vedas. Just like even for ourselves, if there's some crowded place and so many people are talking, we can especially hear when someone's speaking about us. All sounds come from his ears. Everything I'm hearing all those sounds, that's all coming from his ears. And all of the space in which sound is transmitted. His steps are havyam karma bihi. By Krishna's walking, he enables us to do so many activities which then we can offer to him in yajna or as ceremonies of connection. Every step we take should be some kind of ceremony of connection. We'll talk about this a little bit more on Sunday also with Career Dharma. And this is Krishna walking through our life. In his touch or lusty desires, this is something I think about when I avoid touching certain people. Right? You ever like going through a doorway and you kind of get out of the way of somebody, right? I was reading this story, true story. So there was a convention of Catholic religious people, monks, nuns, and priests, and there was a nun and a monk going through a doorway at the same time, and their skin didn't even touch, it was just their clothes. Just their clothes touch each other, and a few months later they got married to each other. It's a true story, I'm not making this up. Okay. The hairs on his body are the source of all vegetation. And the trees are the hairs. This is a picture at Govardhan, by the way. And the trees are all the hairs on his body. This is also something I like to think about a lot. Generally, whenever we walk outside, there are trees. And they are the hairs on his body. Do you ever have a little insect walk on your arm? And you can kind of feel it walking on the hairs of your arm. So I think like that when I'm walking among the trees, I'm just like some little being walking. You know, I feel very close to Krishna that I'm walking on his body. I don't think he minds. Like I don't mind some little buggy walking on my arm. Usually anyway, I don't mind. Then the clouds in the sky, they're the hairs on his head. So of course Krishna's hair is blackish. And often the clouds are blackish, but also many times the clouds are white. So when does Krishna's hair look whitish? Probably the moonlight, yeah. When does Krishna's hair look whitish? Excellent. Who said that? Excellent. Excellent. If there's a Mahasweet, you should give this gentleman Mahasweet. Yes, first canto, chapter 9, the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Bhishmadev describes when Krishna's running towards him with that chariot wheel, that his hair looked white from all the dust on the battlefield. What's another time mentioned in the Shastra? That was first canto. What's another time mentioned in 10th canto? I should have a plate of sweets here to give out, huh? Yes, excellent. This gentleman also should get a Mahasweet. Returning from the forest, when Krishna comes back to the village in the afternoon, and then it's also from dust. It's from the dust of the cows. So when you see the white clouds, you can think how Krishna's on the battlefield or how Krishna's returning in the afternoon, and his hair gets dusty. And all of the different medicines are the hairs. So we know that they have their potency from Krishna's breathing. So they're his hairs. It's like he breathes on his hairs. And then those are all of our medicines. And you know what it's like when we feel sick and we take some medicine and it makes us feel better. That's because it's Krishna's hairs and his breathing. On his nails is electricity. So whenever you turn on, by the way, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with anyone who wants it. So you can take as many pictures as you like, but I'll also share the PowerPoint with you. And if you want to go deeply into this, we have an illustrated book, so you're all set here. Okay. We don't have that many copies here, but if we run out, they are on Amazon also. So. All right, so on his nails is electricity. So whenever you turn on your phone, you turn on a light switch. That's like Krishna's nails. It's touching that, making the electricity. And also the horse, mule, camel, and elephant are on his nails. Now, I don't think in Melbourne we use these animals much for work. I don't think so. Of course, in the older human society, these were the working animals. And just like our nails, right, they're kind of like tools that we use for work. Oh, this is a fun one. So on his nails were all the stones. So I think of this whenever I see anyone who paints their nails. right? People paint their nails to try to look like different jewels, but Krishna's nails actually have the jewels on them. Sometimes people even like glue little jewel-like things on their nails, right? Whenever I see that, I'm like, Krishna's nails are actually rubies and actually diamonds, right? It's not just some stinky stuff that people put on. Then the wild animals, they're on his belt zone. So our belt is a very functional garment, holds up our clothes. In a similar way, the wild animals preserve the whole ecosystem. So there's a wonderful video about 14, 15 minutes long, you can see, of how wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park in the United States. And it was just fascinating. You know, they had gotten rid of all the wolves for like 60 years, then they brought in one wolf pack. And this one wolf pack changed the entire ecosystem. From this one wolf pack, grassland became forests, many other creatures became introduced, and even the course of the rivers changed. So all these wild animals, they are on the belt of the Lord, holding up the ecosystem. We make them endangered or extinct at our peril. Then the ecosystem's pants fall down. His lotus feet gives us protection from fear. And this is something we can remember when we're walking. You know, we're walking, and especially if it's uneven ground or stairs, and we're very careful how we place our feet, isn't it? I'm just remembering one time a good friend of mine, I was visiting her, and she wanted to take me to see this waterfall that was up a mountain, but the whole trail was very muddy. And so the whole way, I never got to see any scenery. The whole way I'm just watching my feet, you know, to make sure that I don't slip. And when we got up there, it was just this teeny tiny little thing. And I'm like, gosh, you know, I watched my feet for an hour just to go up and see this little ribbon of water. But how much I was focusing on my feet to keep me stable. So whenever we're noticing how our feet are going, we can remember this, that it's the Lord's feet that gives us this stability and this freedom from fear. From his genitals originate water and semen and the rains. So generally males can only produce offspring of their own species, but the Lord through the rains, he's the father of all species. Aham bija pradapita. He's everyone's father. And in his semen is all the waters. The waters are full of the Lord's energy. They're full of the Lord's vitality. We are alive, nourished, cleansed, and functional because of water, which is full of the Lord's potency. How can we become divinely conscious when we're on the toilet? So the Lord has an evacuating organ in the universe which gets rid of envy and misfortune and death and everything that's hellish and difficult, just like our body, right? It gets rid of its toxins. Yes? And the deity in the Lord's evacuating organ is called Mitra. Anyone know what Mitra means? Friend. When our digestion works, is it our friend? Yes. And then we can think of how Krishna also gets rid of all that's bad in the universe. In his jaws are Yama, the god of death who punishes the sinful. So sometimes it appears that good people are suffering or bad people are prospering, but we know that behind everything there is Yama, and that ultimately everything is fair, and that really the sinners are being taken and crushed in his teeth. And the art of affection is his teeth. Whenever we feel the Lord's affection, it's because he's smiling at us. On his back is immorality. So one time an airline pilot asked Srila Prabhupada, if God is all good, why is there evil? And Prabhupada said, evil is on God's backside. So the evildoers, they are still part of the body of God, but they're behind him. They can't really see him. They can't really have a relationship with him. From his veins are all the rivers and rivulets, right? Our veins are the channels of life-giving liquid that deliver nutrition and carry away waste. And the huge rivers of the world, and even sometimes the rivulets, they define the borders of countries. They allow human habitation. They direct the migration of animal herds. They allow us to transport things from surplus to need. And all of these rivers, they are messengers of the Lord's heartbeat. On his bones are the great mountains that give structure and support to the earth. On his arms are the leaders who are protecting us, headed by the great celestial Indra. But those who act to protect us from harm, the Kshatriyas, they are acting as the Lord's arms. One of Krishna's qualities is that he's shy. And his shyness is shown in his upper lip, like this. And that's why atheists can look at creation and not see God, because he's shy. He's kind of like an artist who didn't sign his painting. And desire, hankering, is his chin. Like sometimes little children, when they want something, they do this, right? I want that. So what does Krishna want? He wants love. Yeah? On his heart is dharma, real religion, authenticity. Whenever we are following our dharma, we are next to the heart of the Lord. And there on his chest are pleasing words that are truthful. It's easy to speak harsh truths, but when we can speak truth in a way that is pleasing and enlightening, then we are being held to the chest of the Lord, right next to his heart of Dharma, and also right next to the goddess of fortune. And on the Lord's bosom are the stars. So sometimes we see Krishna wearing sparkling necklaces that look like stars, or he puts such necklaces on those he loves. And when we see the stars sparkling in the sky, we can understand these are his necklaces. So this is a nice one for Melbourne. The ocean is his waist. So Krishna is always dancing, right? When you go to the ocean, you see the way. And he has three lines, three like little folds of skin by his waist. And when you see the currents and the eddies and the waves in the ocean, that is Krishna's dancing. And just like our waist, it joins together our upper and lower bodies. So the ocean is joining together various pieces of land. The passing ages are his movement. Right? As we go in this life through our various ages, as we grow up from being little children to being teenagers, to being young adults and middle-aged and old, this is the Lord actually walking through our life. The main cause of this creation is his intelligence. So I think in every religion and every spiritual movement, they understand this. There's this term intelligent design, that we can look at the world and we see in everything, there had to be a really intelligent person behind all of this. And in his intelligence are the highest celestial beings and the saintly persons. Whenever we are hearing from saintly persons, we are in touch with the Lord's intelligence. And his mind is the moon. Now the moon appears to be changing, and sometimes we may think that Krishna's mind is changing. We might think, oh, now he likes me, now he doesn't like me. But actually, although the moon appears to be changing, it's always constant. Similarly, Krishna's love for us, his affection, his care, even though the moon appears to be changing, is always constant. Rudra, Lord Shiva, anger, is his ego. Now this is interesting. I mean, the main evidence that we have a false ego is that we get angry. Now, we might like to say that we get angry on principle, and maybe sometimes, but generally when we get angry, it's because our false ego has been offended, or even nudged a little bit, you know. So we might wonder, how is it that the Lord has an ego that manifests as Rudra? But you know, anger doesn't have to come from just being offended. We can also be angry out of love. Right? You see your child picks up some dangerous thing and you go, hey, put that down. So Krishna's anger as his ego is actually that of love. So this is a wonderful one to meditate on, because practically every day we are seeing or hearing birds. And these birds indicate his artistic sense. So in what way do birds show Krishna's artistic sense? By their chirping, by their sounds, right? And even the ones that go caw, 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 I think of them as like the drums, you know? How else?
By their colors.
Their colors. What else?
And the falls. Different falls.
They're different forms. Their forms and colors. What else? They're dancing. What else? Their sounds, yes? Their liveliness. Is that what you said? Yes. Oh, I like that. The beautiful way they fly. Yes, even the flightless ones like the penguins. Right? And you know, there's some, I think it's starlings that fly in those big groups, those murmurings or whatever they're called. Have you ever seen those? Incredible. I mean, it looks like this moving display of abstract art. And how they build their nests. Are those often very artistic, how they weave their nests together? Huh? So anytime that we see birds or hear birds, which is practically every day, it's pretty hard to go for one day without any connection to birds, we can meditate on how Krishna is an artist. Humanity is his residence, so God is everywhere, but especially in human society, there's always some form of worship. There's churches, temples, mosques, synagogues, and these places are all called the house of God. Right? So whenever we see such places, there is a house of God. And the angels show his musical rhythm. In every society, the angels are depicted as musicians. Oh, the demoniac soldiers are representatives of his wonderful prowess. Even the demons have to get their strength from Krishna. If Krishna doesn't give them it, we'll talk about this more on Thursday. But if Krishna doesn't give them any strength, they can't do anything. So how interesting, even those who are evil, they actually can't do anything without getting the power of God. His thighs are the Vaishyas. So Vaishyas are like farmers, bankers, people who are providing all the food and the wealth for society. And just like in our thigh is our femur bone, and our femur bone, you know, it's the largest bone in our body. So these people who are providing food, they're the support of the whole body. Just remember that all sounds come from, where do sounds come from? Krishna's ears. All sounds come from Krishna's ears. Then the Shudras are under the protection of his feet. Craftspeople, artists, musicians, plumbers, electricians, all the people who make the world work, the people who make the world beautiful, the people who make the world full of pleasure, the people who make the world supportive, the people who have an attitude of service. We'll talk about this more on Sunday in Career Dharma. So they're especially under the protection of the Lord's feet, because without them, nothing could go on. In his navel is the sky. In the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila Dev talks about how all the universe came out of the navel of the Lord, and it looks like it wants to go back in because his navel is so deeply coiled. The upper planets are his upper body. On his eyebrows are the regulative principles. So when we're doing the right thing, it's like Krishna's doing this. And when we're doing the wrong thing, he's doing this. And his anger is on his forehead. So, you know, sometimes when we're angry, our forehead gets kind of wrinkled. So I like to think, you know, if I get angry, I must be stuck in one of those wrinkles on his forehead. So I'm right there with the Lord, but I can't really see him very well. On his shadow was death. And you can say, how does Krishna have a shadow? He's fully effulgent. But when I turn from him, I create the shadow, and I experience death. And his smile is illusion. But of course, there's two kinds of illusion. There's the illusion where we don't see him. How amazing is it that the illusion where we don't see him is also him? Just think about that for a while. The illusion where I don't see him is also him smiling. You don't see me. And then there's another kind of illusion, Yogamaya, where you do see him, but you see him just as your wonderful friend. You see him just as a member of your village, and you're not seeing him as a supreme being. And then all living entities are within his body. All right, so I'd like to ask each of you, which one of these are you going to be meditating on the next couple days? Somebody? Fire as voice. Excellent. Okay, somebody else.
Breathing.
Greedy?
Breathing.
Oh, breathing. Which one of the breathing ones? We had a whole bunch of them.
Which produces the fragrance.
Well, she has to say what she's going to meditate on. Which one do you want to take for breathing? You want to think about it some more? We'll come back to you. And you want the breathing that creates the fragrance.
Yeah.
Or did you have another one too?
Yes.
What's your other one?
His eyelids.
Oh, the eyelids with day and night. Wonderful. Okay, somebody else. Yes. Oh, he's in his navel. In his navel, that the universe comes out and the whole sky is in his navel. When you're looking at the sky, you're actually looking inside the navel of the Lord. Isn't that cool? I like that one. That's the one I like to think about too. Okay, somebody else? Yeah? His waist. The ocean is his waist and he's dancing. Someone else? Yes. Yeah, especially which part? Which part of his body is all the pleasure coming from? Anybody remember? His tongue. His tongue. All the rasas, all the pleasures coming from his tongue. Okay, somebody else? His lotus feet are for protection from fear. Yes? The trees are the hairs. That's a nice one. I'm walking along the hairs. Did you think of which breathing one you wanted yet? You like the fragrance one, yes. So whenever we're smelling the fragrances, that's the smell of the Lord's breath. Very nice. Okay, somebody else. Mind as the moon. Oh, there's hair as the different clouds. And it's nice to think of the white ones. Then he has dust from the cows or from the battlefield. Okay, somebody else? What? His veins, the rivers and the rivulets as his veins. Very nice. Someone else. Sun is his eye. The trees are his hair. Now, sun is his eye, you can think of in so many ways. That I'm making eye contact with the Lord. That because of the sun, I can see. Yes, okay. Ego, anger. Woohoo. Sound coming from his ears. Right? Sunrise and sunset as his moving garments. Excellent. Somebody else. Oh, the cause of everything is his intelligence. Nostrils, and which one? Breathing. Okay, and our breathing coming from his nostrils. Somebody else. Nail stones. Oh, I do that. I tell you, every time I see anybody with painted nails, I'm like, woohoo! Krishna has the real stones. Yes, someone back there. Oh, that all forms are coming from that. He's looked at it, right? Any of these forms, he's looked at it and he's created it from his eyes. Okay, so please, it just takes a little effort, right? Just a little. This is called sadhana bhakti or abhyas yoga practice. So a little effort. So tonight when you're seeing the sunset, when you're seeing the clouds, you're hearing the birds, you're walking on the ground, you're walking in the trees. Yeah. Just take a moment. Just a second. How is this Krishna? And maybe today you'll be able to do it for 2 minutes, maybe tomorrow for 3 minutes, maybe for 10. Till gradually your whole life becomes surcharged like that. Okay, so anyone who wants to go deeper, we do have this book. It's not the kind of book, I mean, you can if you want to, but it's not the kind of book like you sit down and you read it from cover to cover. It's the kind of book that you can just pick it up and look at the illustrations, or you can just pick up anywhere and just read one of the little paragraphs, and then have that be informing your day. Those of you who have kids, it's the kind of thing you can read with your kids. Yes? And maybe this can be a springboard to your own meditations and how you want to take these different things that the Bhagavatam says and find Krishna in the world. And of course, if you're enjoying this from the Bhagavatam, we have many, many volumes of the Bhagavatam itself. When I was in Auckland, after I gave this presentation, someone went and bought a whole set of Bhagavatams. So we have those available. And thank you for getting a first-class projector. Oh, you want to do it that way? Do you have my WhatsApp number?
Shall I?
Because I got to be signing books now. I'm too distracted. Yeah. Yes. Just give me a second here. She's arranging anyone who's cooking for me, she's arranging that. Who's this? But whose is
Jaya Jaya